So there's this unfortunate truth that I've realized about myself recently, and it's that I think I love Twitter now. Don't get me wrong, the app is terrible, it's falling apart, it's getting worse every day, but there's this beautiful lack of shame that oozes from every single post, and a kind of vibe of superiority that you really can't find from anywhere else. Like, take this tweet for example. Been training and playing sports my whole life. Science means shit to me. I do what works for me with the outcome I want. Ever see a fit scientist? I can't even be mad at this. It's camp. It's art. We adore. On its own, objectively funny. But the problem is that these dum-dums are everywhere now, especially in fitness spaces where innocent bystanders are just looking for good information. I think this thread I found a couple weeks ago perfectly encapsulates the absolute chaos that exists with diet culture online, because we have a user asking about why they're eating 1,200 calories a day and not losing any weight. And below, you have comments ranging from it takes a while to try intermittent fasting to someone else advising them to just try drinking more water. The problem here is that there's a grain of truth to each comment, but in isolation, each reply is a terrible response to the original tweet, because dieting is nuanced. So, in order to get to the bottom of this, I'm going to try this diet out for myself. 1,200 calories a day for 1 week. I want to find out what merits this diet has, who out there thinks it's a good idea, and also I want to find out why the skin of every alternative lifestyle influencer looks like that. Genuinely don't understand it. Anyway, let's get into it. I'll see you in the kitchen. All right, fam, let's get into it. So, day one. Normally, on a regular day, I have a breakfast shake. It's got about 1,200 calories. So, just to keep things easy on me, what I did is I divided that by 3 and had the first little bit for breakfast. Then for the second meal of the day, we had 3 eggs, 1 cup of rice, which is about 425 calories. And then we had a chicken and rice meal with a little bit of carrots for the third meal. I was not beating the dog food allegations, but I digress. Admittedly, day one wasn't that difficult. Emotionally, I really prepared myself for this, so dealing with everything wasn't that hard. I don't think a conversation about diets can be complete without asking the question of why we put so much restriction on food. Because under capitalism, sorry, I heard myself say that out loud and got annoyed. It's fine. In America, the idea of having less or even giving things up is not exactly the norm. So how come Americans will destroy their credit and ruin their futures in order to have things, but suddenly become so modest and demure when the waiter brings out a plate of breadsticks? In my opinion, I think this all stems back to the Enlightenment. In the mid-1600s, a scientist and traveler by the name of Francois
Bernier
identifies that the world is made of 4 races. The first race included populations from Europe, North America, Middle East, India, Southeast Asia, and the Americas. The second race consisted of sub-Saharan Africans, the third consisted of East and Northeast Asians, and the fourth consisted of the Sami people. So the reason I think these labels are so important is not because they have merit, but because in the late 1600s, when the Enlightenment begins, there is an onslaught of European men hyped up on caffeine and sugar, desperately trying to come up with answers to questions like, what is society and who gets to participate? Because there seems to be this tug of war between the ideas of knowing kings and family lineage is an unproductive way to organize a system of governing, while also knowing equality means that we can't do slave trade. And that's when we meet Buffon? I'm just gonna let Google do this one for me.
Georges-Louis Leclerc, Comte de Buffon.
Buffon wrote in Natural History General and Peculiar, the plumpness of black Africans was evidence of their ease of circumstance and their idleness. For this reason, black Africans were able to stay well-nourished with little or no effort, which made them well-fed, but also simple and stupid. And of course, people have been saying bullshit like that since the beginning of time. But it was the Enlightenment where the link between aesthetic and morality really became solidified. In Fear of the Black Body, there's this passage about Sarah Bartman. She was an African woman that was taken through France as part of a traveling freak show because of her massive hips and disproportionate body. But apparently a lot of people were let down by the show. Some exhibit goers were disappointed to discover that she looked, well, just like any other woman. I just think it's fascinating that even 400 years ago, people are promised some horrible monster when in reality it's just a fabricated boogeyman. Fast forward to early 1800s Protestant America, and we've developed an intersectional connection between religious morality and skinniness and purity. So of course, mid-1800s, when immigration is really starting to pick up, Puritans turn their ire to a new invading group. Essayist Thomas Carlyle blamed the Irish potato famine on the Celtic race, calling them greedy potato eaters, and William Camden described the Irish as wild and uncivil, claiming that they were fond of profanity, violence, and gluttony. So that's just it, right? Throughout history, when an other is introduced that vaguely threatens the power structure, the established group resorts to calling them stupid, fat, and lazy. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be skinny, but at the end of the day, aesthetics has nothing to do with your morality or value. The only reason that we believe it today is because 200 years ago, some sad Protestants were threatened by some gingers crossing the Atlantic. And I don't know about you, but that sounds super embarrassing.
Day 2, for breakfast, we've got 2/3 of the breakfast shake that I had made the day before. That comes out to about 825 calories. And then for the second meal, we have chicken, rice, and some chips on the side because I needed some sustenance after my workout. That came out to about 400 calories. So all throughout the day, we've got about 12 to 25 calories. Yeah, the fatigue is starting to set in. I remember my workout wasn't that great, but I was also kind of distracted with the rest of my day. So we're chugging along, divas. We're doing it, we're having a fun time, but not really because having to count out how many chips you're eating, a miserable experience, let me tell you that right now.
So I couldn't actually find any studies or fads that point to the benefits of just 1,200 calories a day, but what I did find was the Minnesota starvation experiment conducted by Ansel Keys. Our boy Keys over here took 32 men and for 3 months fed them 3,200 calories, basically just let them eat whatever they wanted. Then, after that, for 6 months, he fed them 1,500 calories. In this study, he was specifically trying to replicate wartime rations, so the men were fed potatoes, rutabagas, turnips, bread, and macaroni. Lots of starches, lots of carbs, not a lot of proteins or fats. So, when the men were on their 1,500 calorie diet, they started to go a little crazy. They were tired, bored, cold. They would become irritable and start stealing food from others. Not to mention their sex drive went way down. And all of this is what we describe diet fatigue, a state at which your body is struggling to function because it doesn't have the correct nutrients, and this can be very dangerous. When you deprive your body for too long, your system interprets that lack of food as a threat. This causes hormone production to go down. The body can start eating its own muscle to conserve energy. This is the kind of process that people are talking about when they discuss destroying your metabolism. And this is the danger of dictating your process by just calories, right? Because the devil's in the details. The difference between someone having 1,500 calories and thriving and someone else having 1,500 calories and crashing their entire system is the nutrients you provide it with. Everyone wants to go around restricting and fasting when they don't even know the cause and effect of what they're trying to restrict. You can't build a house without a solid foundation, and you can't start a productive diet without first knowing your mind's limitations and your body's affordances. And that's why it's so unhelpful with people advertising their lifestyle to others. There's no set of rules, there's no perfect way to live. And if you're going around telling people that the process of learning about all this is an easy one, then you're either too naive for the business or you're lying.
Okay, so we're at day 3, and this is where things really start to fall apart. Prior, on Tuesday night, I had gone over to my friend's house, and they had ordered food with their friends. They asked me if I wanted any. I declined because I'm doing a thing for my 6 followers on YouTube. They ended up ordering me a side of rice and chicken as just like a gesture of pity. So for my first meal, I had white rice, chicken, and then 2 eggs for 500 calories. So fast forward, Thursday night, I am having company over. And before they came, I knew I needed something to hold me over just because I would be exerting more energy than normal. So what I had was spaghetti with some chicken, 600 calories total, and everything was looking fine until I had 7 Oreos. Let me tell you, I thought I was like maintaining this high prestige of control. Apparently 7 Oreos has 500 calories in it, so that makes our total for the day 1,600 calories. I didn't plan for this. I didn't think this was gonna be a problem. So what I decided to do was just take those calories out of the next day. And yeah, that wasn't fun.
If I'm gonna be blunt, I think a lot of fitness influencers discuss dieting in a really cowardly way. And they do this by creating a Mott and Bailey fallacy. This is when you have an individual make a bold, controversial statement that's hard to defend, the Bailey, but then walk back to more simplified, uncontroversial terms when they're challenged on something, the Mott. For example, it is controversial advice to advise someone to lift heavy and hard and stop working out just to get it in. Every professional knows that consistency is key. But the reality is, some days are really difficult, and just showing up and only doing a little is still showing up for yourself and necessary for keeping a pattern and structure. But of course, instead of engaging in a conversation about emotional diversity, the creator gets to walk it back to something far less specific. I was just sharing information that worked for me. And I just hate that, because if you're sharing something that only worked for you, then what's the value of sharing it? What percentage of people do you actually think benefit from this info? And I see this crap all the time. Unless you're competing as a bodybuilder, there is no reason to ever track your body fat percentage. Again, to advise this is controversial. It's a hot take. It's the Bailey. But when they revert to claiming that it's all just anecdotal experience, the claims become far less controversial, easy to defend, the Mott. I just think it's irresponsible to share information that is so specific to you on a platform where you know people are coming and looking for advice. I believe we've exited helpful territory and now we're just bragging.
Okay, so day 4, as we know, we have to keep this day 400 calories less than 1,200 because we went over the day before. So to start off, we had some chicken and a potato. It was the saddest thing I've ever woken up to in the morning, truly. I'll admit, I knew I wasn't going to be able to eat a lot, and that was really discouraging. So I kept putting off making anything until like 11, where I was getting like stomach cramps, I was annoyed, I was frustrated, I couldn't really focus. So what I did was pull out a prepackaged meal that has about 300 calories in it. It had like steak and potatoes, some shit. It was terrible. The potatoes were runny and the steak was chewy. It was truly a horrible experience, but we got through it. We made it through that day with 650 calories. And also I skipped my workout because I was tired and annoyed. So we're doing great.
There's a subreddit called 1200 is Plenty, and it's a place where people can gather together and share their meals that help them stay under 1200 calories a day. I'm incredibly suspicious of there being no people on this subreddit, but instead just pictures of food. Do I think the results of a diet should be linked to an aesthetic? No. Also, does someone need to look healthy to me in order to be healthy? Not particularly. That being said, let's turn the camera around. I'm trying to see something. Because what do you mean 1200 is plenty? Plenty is a very specific word. Plenty implies that you've had enough. There's abundance, that you should be grateful for what you have. Listen, I'm chronically online. I make these videos as a hobby. I've got plenty of time on my hands. If you think 1200 calories is plenty, comment below. I will read it and I will take it seriously. Prove to me that this is a life change motivated through health, or that the diet makes you feel better when you wake up each morning. Prove to me that restriction and diet don't control your every thought. And I know I'm being smug, but I do think I understand. In a world that's constantly changing, it can be very nice to have your number. I can't even begin to understand how hard it must be to live in a world where no matter what you do, your body is wrong. So it makes sense to me that a group of people would find solace in cold, hard, consistent numbers. As long as you have that number, it doesn't matter what they say, because you know you've done the work, and you can prove it with the number. I understand that, but despite my sympathies, instead of working to liberate themselves from the judgment of others, what I'm seeing here is someone who has added another cell to the prison.
All right, so we're at day 5. This is a Saturday, and we hit another road bump. I took my friend out for coffee, and I got a latte, and knew that I would be paying for it later. I just wanted to enjoy myself for a little bit. The thing is, I could have sworn milk has a lot more calories than it did. I could have sworn a latte would have been like 500 to 600 calories. It only has 300. So I fasted for the rest of the day, thinking that I wasn't going to be able to eat much by the end. However, to my surprise, I had over 800 calories to spend by the end of the night. So I made a really simple like bean dip, kind of like a deconstructed burrito, whatever. And I shoved that in my mouth because I was really hungry. Purely by accident, I was able to give myself a little gift. That was fun. And at the end of the day, we made it to about 1,150 calories. So, cheers. Was it a productive day? No, of course not. But did we do what we said we'd do? Sure.
I do want to talk about Ancel Keys again because he's kind of a controversial figure. That is to say, he's not the best figure in history regarding health and diets because of a way he irresponsibly handled a study about how cholesterol causes heart disease. What happened was that Keys combined saturated fats and polyunsaturated fats into the same identification. Meanwhile, trans fats were omitted from the study entirely. And this is bad because fats are not the same. For instance, unsaturated fats in moderation are great for preventing cardiovascular diseases because they raise good cholesterol and lower bad cholesterol. All this is to say, the way these fats bond together produces different effects in the body, and treating them as the same is going to net incredibly misleading results. I bring this up because often through history, the science that pertains to diets is incredibly inconsistent and riddled with bias. And although we as a people know more now, the narratives we've been taught still tend to hang over us. Ancel Keys didn't say fats are bad, he said cholesterol is bad, and fats are what caused it, which isn't incorrect, but the word that gets the most attention is, of course, fats. And now, fast forward to America's obsession with fat-free products and marketing. The thing about fats is that they taste really good, and are often the one ingredient keeping your food tasting like absolute dog shit. Just ask the next person eating chicken, rice, and vegetables. You tell me if you're having a fun time. So when companies created fat-free products, in order to compensate for the lack of taste, they added a ton of sugar. So because of this widespread fat-free marketing campaign, you have a public that's becoming afraid of unsaturated fats. Meanwhile, they're consuming way more sugar. Consuming more sugar increases your glycogen levels, and when you can't burn off your glycogen, it's stored as fat, the one thing everyone's supposed to be avoiding. Apparently, there's a lot of panic right now about seed oils. A lot of grifters online are trying to tell people that seed oil will make you die or whatever. But seed oils are mostly unsaturated fats. They're not bad for you. There is no evidence linking seed oils to bad health. And my point to bring this up is that as an individual, it becomes much easier to tune out the nonsense when you know your history. There will always be some loser out there trying to tell you that you're bad at living. But I do think that being able to notice the patterns through history is your best defense against someone trying to sell you some snake oil. Snake oil, ironically, being the one oil mentioned today that actually is bad for you.
Okay, so we're at day 6, and I remember I was really busy this day, and so I had rice and eggs for breakfast, starting off great. But then by the end of the day, I was so tired and so exhausted, I had 2 potatoes and a banana because I just wanted to put something in my mouth before I went to bed. During the weekend is where you can really see me kind of like crash out. All the structure and all the planning I had done is becoming more difficult to hold on to because of the schedule that I have. And since I didn't like physically prep anything going in, you can tell that like there are certain points where I'm literally scrambling to keep up with anything at all. These aren't good choices. 2 potatoes and a banana is not sufficient. And I remember the next day I woke up with a headache. What's crazy to me here is that I was so tired that I was actually under the calorie count. I only had about 800 calories on Sunday. So in a way, it was becoming easier to eat less, but that wasn't inspired by, pushing myself. It was inspired by a lack of desire to do anything substantial.
Something I'll never forgive Jamie Lee Curtis for is convincing me that all yogurt is high in fiber. Cause that's a f***ing lie. Activia has fiber in it, but a regular cup of Greek yogurt has no fiber, none whatsoever. And this is when marketing becomes more powerful than the food itself. My favorite example of the power of marketing is following the popularity of my favorite drink. I love these bitches so much. Celsius, if they're out there, please sponsor me. Because guys, here's my thought process. If I am sponsored by a product, then me having the product around is just good business. But if I'm not sponsored, then I become a man with an addiction. So, balls in your court, Cells. Anyway, what were we talking about? Marketing. This baby started its life as a diet beverage. When Celsius as a brand was having trouble gaining momentum in the market, in 2012, the company pivoted. Instead of advertising this as a tool to lose weight, they decided to move it into the aisle with the rest of the energy drinks. They made the packaging look more feminine and clean, and sold it as a healthy alternative to energy drinks, citing its 7 essential vitamins. The important thing here is that they didn't change the ingredients, they changed the aisle it was being sold in. And now it's true that this does have more vitamins than most energy drinks out there, but the word healthy is doing a lot of heavy lifting, isn't it? Because if someone's drinking 1 sugar-free Red Bull a day and they switch to Celsius, a drink with 100 more milligrams of caffeine, did they make a healthy switch? It depends. Personally, I don't really care what's in this. All I need my energy drink to do is distract me from the horrors that persist when I'm doing a deadlift. But the market can be very influential in how we view things. And you have to remember that the market is not dictated by what is best for you. It's dictated by what will make them the most money. So cheers. It's 6:30 at night and I'm chugging a Celsius for the bit. The views on this video better be fantastic, I swear to God. Otherwise I'm gonna be so pissed.
And finally, we made it to day 7. This is where I really wanted to enjoy myself. And since I didn't have much left over in the fridge, I decided to make ramen with an egg, chicken, and carrots for a total of 675 calories. That was a great little breakfast. And then my second meal was just eggs and rice to get me over that finish line. That combined was a total of 1,025 calories. However, if I'm gonna be honest, I waited until midnight to eat a pizza. So, did I cheese it a little bit? Absolutely. But also, why don't you mind your business? How about that? Huh? Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was rough.
All right, we made it to the end. Let's talk about my week of dieting. It wasn't that bad. My view is that as a fast, I think this is very effective. By putting a strict limit on things, I was able to focus on providing myself with the most essential foods throughout the day. Plus, it was a very good lesson in visualizing how small items like Oreos can very easily stack up into a larger caloric surplus. That being said, holy shit, I cannot live like this. If we're talking about an extended diet, I could probably do this for 3 weeks with some regulated cheat days. But that's it, that's pushing it. What made a lot of this easier to accomplish was that I knew there was an end in sight. In other words, despite the chaos, I was still able to enter with a pretty specific plan. And this is where the nuance comes in, because calories alone are a terrible metric for what your body needs. You can have all the calories in the world, but if you're not getting the right protein, fats, carbs, and vitamins, you're gonna crash out regardless. So if we're gonna reference the original tweet again, I still don't think this is a productive way to cut. Because my experience this week was that, sure, I lost weight and I did cut, but also my workouts were horrible. I didn't have a lot of energy and I was just generally in a worse mood. So in this case, I think it would be way more productive to build the diet out, knowing what you need with protein, carbs, fats, and then judge your expectations on how many calories you can have after. All that being said, I am not a nutritionist. Please get a second opinion by a nutritionist. But yeah, the short of it is that I would be incredibly skeptical of anyone pushing this kind of lifestyle. There could be a lot of shame in seeing other people do things and feeling like you could never achieve that even if you tried. And due to our lack of understanding about what health really is, it can be really hard to tell if you're chasing the ideals of someone who knows what they're doing, or if they themselves are chasing an impossible dream. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, you're probably fine. Seriously, like if you take nothing else from this video, it's that you should just calm down. Anyway, that's all I got, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Also, follow me on all the socials. Comment below. Tell me your thoughts. Do those things. God, I need to start writing these down. I fucking suck at this shit. All right, y'all. See ya.